Mr. Negulam, what's your thought about the idea of a permanent voter's card?
For those of us who are already used to Nigerian system, is one of those things to bring about. Remember, the normal national ID card was started by MPN in 1979. Akinloye days, and we are still on it. So the issue is to look at the institution. And he talked about electoral process, electoral system. Then you now talk of the commission and voters registration, which is the upkeep or the heartbeat of election. But what it explains is our civility rating. In United States or UK, you don't hear about the chairman of INEC or whatever. It is a forgotten issue. Now, from 1999 till now, we have had Apata who is late, had Gubadia, Iwu before we came to Jega. I have always said that Africans should listen to what Obama said in Ghana. In 2009, he said in the 21st century, the key to success is capable, reliable, and transparent institutions. You need strong institutions, not strong men. The issue is this. You are talking of 20 million cards. You don't know when it will come. You remember the first election.
20 million have come.
They're
waiting for the remaining 50. Yeah.
You remember the election, the first election was cancelled, and we had 1 week after, because we were told that materials did not come in from Asia or what. Up to date, nobody knows. Then if you go take back your mind to 2007 election, the materials that were in South Africa, nobody has talked about it. So the issue is at the moment, like I said, the gamut of the electoral system and then the electoral process with the agencies you have on ground. You have not talked about what? National Population Commission. In the census, when we were giving data, biometric data, you have not talked about Iwu's registration and the rest. And when we say that the names like Tyson and Michael Jackson appeared in Nigeria, you are not talking about metro data. So what I'm saying is that it's a continuation of those things, but until we get the other institutions, especially civil society and the other sectors of Nigerian economy, because you are talking about spending money, which is not even in your budget. If any person asks now at the moment, when did you appropriate for this?
We will get to that.
So
We'll get to that in a moment, because we've got to run this very, very quickly because of time. Mr. Mobo Elemo, you're a lawyer, and you are most likely well-traveled. In all my years outside of Nigeria, I've never had to carry a permanent voters register, but for the last 18 years, voters card.
Not the entire register.
I've never had to carry a voters card in all my years outside of Nigeria. Do you think we really need one in Nigeria?
Frankly, I have concerns concerning having a permanent voters card. And there are two concerns I'd like to share here. The first one is the hope that at some point the permanent voters card itself will be phased out once the national ID card becomes fully operational. That's what we heard Mr. Idowu say just now. Now, you know, for me, it's apart from the duplication of effort, apart from the waste that is involved, there is also the concern that, you see, even an ID card is not a permanent one. It's a temporary one, because surely, if you look at me or my passport photograph when I was 30, you cannot compare it to to now. You may well deny if I am one and the same person. That is one. The other concern that I really have, and this is a very serious and a very fundamental concern, has to deal with the, I heard Mr. Idowu say just now that there will be a card reader. Yes? Now, for me, and given the level of enlightenment in our communities, it's doubtful.
Or the lack of it.
Or the lack of it. It's doubtful if you can, with a card reader that is probably exclusive only to the INEC, if you can then confidently say that this is a transparent process. You see, our people are used to the manual process. With the manual process, you had problems and all the rest of it. But at least it was manageable and it appeared, you know, that gave them some measure of confidence. All right? I mean, exclude all the rascality that is associated with ballot snatching and all the rest of it, and the declaration of results. But quite frankly, if you give only the INEC the opportunity to vet by means of a card reader, believe me, that itself creates rippling problems.
Okay. We will take that on if we have the time. But let me ask Mr. Igwebo, do you think that the amount of investment that will go into permanent voters card is justifiable?
I certainly don't think so. As it is, by the time the permanent voters cards are issued, you will have a voters card, you have a national identity card, you have a driver's license, some people have international passport, you have your personal ID. Now, for me, this is how not to go about it, because in the end, by the time they are issuing the national identity cards, you are going to find discrepancies in data. And to sort that out would take over 10 years that he has said these cards will be valid.
10 years.
So for me, what is even going to be permanent about a card that's only valid for 10 years? That's not what it is. What it is we have to understand what our people will engage in effortlessly, as easy as possible. It's okay by me if they bring the cards, because what it means is the process of identification and authentication of the voter will be made easier. But you can trust Nigerians. In a matter of days, they have circumvented all of these things that we are talking about.
Okay, let's ask Mr. Idowu then. Kade Idowu, you've heard what the panel here said. What will then be the justification if the panelists here, or discussants here, are saying that there is no reason or justification that they can find for INEC to invest so much money in permanent voters card?
Thank you very much. Let me begin with the comment by Mr. Igwebo. Unfortunately, the laws that we have in the country as of today specifically prescribe that for you to be able to vote, you must be in possession of a voter's card. In other words, you cannot use your international passport to vote. You cannot use your driver's license to vote, because under the law, it is required that you tender a voter's card. And so, much as we have all those other means of identification, unfortunately, the legal framework that we have, and until that legal framework changes, you are not able to use any of those other means of identification, and that explains the justification for INEC issuing voters card in the first place, whether they are temporary or permanent. You needed to have this voters card such that when you come to the polling unit, you are required by law to be in possession of the voters card before you're allowed to vote. Actually, so let me make that point now. Whether your name is in the register or not, you will be required to still tender your voter's card before you are able to vote. And so that is the justification. Now, as for the authenticity of the voter register, I can assure you that So far, we've done the best. What we had in 2011 was not perfect, but it was a lot better than the time when you had Michael Tyson and Michael Jackson and Mike Tyson and all that kind of names in the register. And since 2011, we have been further consolidating the data and using AFIS to eliminate multiple registrations. And that's why in Anambra, for instance, we did report that since 2011, we were able to eliminate close to 9,000 names. In addition to that, we had the 2011. That shows you the kind of voter register that we have today. And you are getting these permanent cards as a result of the consolidation and optimization of that voter register. In other words, there will be no single person that will be issued 2 voter cards because of double registration. Because before anybody is issued a voter card, the register will have been subjected to optimization and all multiple registrations eliminated. And so everybody will get only 1 card.
Okay,
that I can assure
Mr. Dowu, we have to wrap up now.
Now, the transparency, I really do not understand the point. Because the card reader is there just as a means of reading the voter card.
Mr. Dowu, we have to wrap up now. I just want to ask one quick question. Can you hear me, Mr. Dowu?
Your card is swiped. You put your fingerprint on the card on the device, and it authenticates your fingerprint with that is on the biometric chip. Now, in addition to that, there's a voice prompt, such that even
Mr. Dowu, unfortunately, we don't have the time to take all of your responses.
Not verified. And when there's a voice prompt,
we will have to come back to the studio. I'm not sure you're hearing us. Your final word. I know that the key thing for some of us is how much is being spent. I would have loved to find out from the INEC spokesman how much is the investment in Naira and Kobo. But Mr. Lemo, your final word. Well, very quickly, just 1 sentence.
Well, I hope that what we're hearing from Mr. Idowu doesn't conclude that the voters register is permanent, because the law does require that you update it on a continuous basis.
Okay, Mr. Iwobo?
Yeah, for me, it's a good move in the right direction. I mean, if you consider that no effort will be too much to ensure free, fair, and credible elections in Nigeria. To that extent, I have my support, but I just hope they will do their talk. That's
okay, your word. Just 1 sentence.
We need to update the register, because those who are less than 18 and even those who died are no longer there. But all the same, it's now a call for every person to be engaged towards 2015, because we still have a lot in hand towards our democratic journey.
All right, thank you very much. On that note, we'll have to wrap up the final segment of the program this morning. We want to say thank you to Mr. Moboye Lemo, public legal practitioner, Mr. Ide Egwebo, publisher of National Interest newspaper, and on the other side, Mr. Emmanuel Anebulam, legal practitioner, and of course, our guest in Abuja, Kade Dowu, the INEC spokesperson in our Abuja studio.